SRN News.
Welcome to Champions for Life, the radio ministry of First Choice Pregnancy Services here in Las Vegas. I'm Deborah, the Executive Director of First Choice.
And I'm Ken.
And we are Champions for Life.
Hey, welcome Las Vegas. Welcome to Champions for Life radio broadcast and outreach ministry of First Choice Pregnancy Services. We are so delighted to be with you today in a very unique landscape now. Holy smokes, we are now past this election, although I believe Nevada's still counting the votes. At last I checked, 90% in. Can you believe we're still counting? It's just amazing. But we got a lot to report there, and of course, the host of the program, Deborah Costello, is on telephone line. In fact, do we have her? Well, let's go.
Yes, I'm here.
There she is, and there she is. And but before we get going,
counting, right?
Yeah, they're still. Can you believe that they're still counting
ballots?
Oh, man, I don't understand it. But all right, before we do that, though, we want to acknowledge one of our sponsors that make this program possible, and that's RTS Postal Express. Now, listen closely. A lot of you folks out there, you have printing needs, right? You've got business cards, resumes, letterheads you needed designed and printed up. You need all of that. Some of you guys have businesses with banners. Others of you said, I've always imagined my company logo on my shirt, like I have right here. You see my shirt right there. You can't see it, but if you're on Facebook, you can. And right? And you want a company that can put it on your logo on your cups and your shirts and all that stuff. RTS Postal Express is going to meet your needs. Give Angelo a call. Here's the number, 702-489-4859. And get this. If you mention KKVV or First Choice or whatever, and just mention the radio station if you want, or First Choice, either one, and you get 10% off your first order. 10%. Just mention the broadcast, and you're going to get 10% off. Call Angelo, 702-489-4859. RTS Postal Express. It stands for really terrific service. I love Angelo. I really do. So, well, Madam Host from who is on our telephone line, what do you think? I mean, did you expect to see what has happened? It's bittersweet. I'm kind of like in a bittersweet kind of mood. More sweet than bitter.
Well, it's definitely more sweet than bitter. I was just telling somebody today that recently I was just praying, and I was like, I know, Lord, we deserve judgment for just the wicked things that our country is continuously expanding upon. Just when you think about so many states that have passed abortion through the 9th month of pregnancy, and then you have all these little children that are now being mutilated, that think they're a different gender, that we then have seen coming into our center that are named and messed up for proceeding forward and bearing these children that God has equipped them to carry and to be able to feed, that can no longer breastfeed their babies because they've had their breasts removed. And so it's like, Lord, like, avenge these babies, 70 million in our country alone. And then the other part of me was, Lord, have mercy on us. I have little kids. And so I was praying that in his justice and wrath, he would remember mercy, and that the election would not head the direction where everybody was kind of fearful that it was heading, that was on the side of liberty. And so, there's those 12 pro-lifers that got charged with the FACE Act here in the last few months.
That is true.
That got thrown in prison. And, the one lady, I just saw her on her social media a few weeks ago, Beverly, she got sentenced to 3 years in prison, and she had to say bye to her 2-year-old little girl. And what did she do? Nothing. And so you see the persecution of the righteous on full display. And so I was like, well, if this is the direction we head, we know that it's going to be a lot harder for us at First Choice. And the battle that we are fighting. So being that it went the other direction, I thought it was great for freedom and for democracy, to be able to continue doing the work that we're doing without having that intense pressure from the other side that was seeking to continue to push ungodly morals and evil agendas. So I feel pretty good today. As far as like the abortion legislature across the country, it's very disappointing to see where things have headed. Now, post Roe versus Wade being overturned, there have now been 14 states across our country that have put the baby on their ballot, and the baby has been massacred on those ballots. There was 10 in this election this week. All of them but 3 passed abortion. I believe all of them were through the entire pregnancy. I know my home state of Missouri that had an abortion ban went from no abortions to the full 9 months in abortions now.
Wow, what a swing. What a complete change of policy.
Yeah. And so I was talking to my sister back home. She's like, I just can't believe we passed this. And I said, you know what? I'll bet you the majority of people that voted on it don't know what they passed. I mean, even voting here on it in Las Vegas, it had in the ballot measure to viable. Well, it's already to viable till 6 months in our state's constitution. Yet they put it in there with the wording that they did and the way that they did to further push the time limit on abortion, to remove the restrictions. Fortunately for Nevada, I don't think any of the other states were like us, but you have to vote on it twice in order for it to constitutionally amend our constitution. So it'll be back on our ballot in 2 years for a second vote to try and push it through to 9 months. I was also very encouraged that, just as I was thinking about it before the election and just seeing so many commercials, I was sitting at the car dealership the other day getting my oil changed for about an hour and a half. And there was just one after another commercial on abortion. And I'd say probably 7 to 8 out of 10 abortion or commercials on TV were abortion. And so I just thought, seriously, is our nation going to elect somebody and the driving issue be the murder of innocent human life? And so as I watched it unfold the other night and saw a lot of the exit polls and different people's things, abortion wasn't at the top of a lot of people's lists like people were saying it was. So that was a little encouraging to me. I do think that we have a lot of work to do across this country to now work on each state to rectify the wrongs that have put in. But it's gonna really require people, God's people that love life, to stand up and take the time to get out there and educate people on abortion. When my sister said, I can't believe that they do this, like, I, to some extent, can kind of wrap my mind around how somebody can advocate for it, like, in the first couple of months. But she's like, how can anybody advocate for this all the way up to the time a baby is born? And I told her, I said, you have to understand, abortion is a word. It's not connected in a lot of people's minds, like hers and mine, to the reality of what abortion looks like, a mutilated baby. A lot of people don't think about what that means when they hear abortion. They don't sit there and think, well, at what point does it become a baby, or at what point is it developed? It's not even a thought process for a lot of people. But being that it has gone back to the states, it is a huge opportunity for people to really work within their states, to educate the people in their state, and to get some laws changed. Now that it's not on a national level and it's an individual state thing, if God's people stood up with as many Christian voters as sat out of the election, if just those people that are disenfranchised with voting took up this issue, not as a political issue, but as a moral issue, they could effectively change the situation in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and I agree, and but yes, it's still quite sad. Of the 10 states that voted, 7 of them, we're talking about Arizona, Colorado, Maryland, Montana, Missouri, Nevada, and New York. They all voted for propositions that legalize in some manner, some of them all the way to 9 months, abortion. And it's very sad. And that's the case apparently in ours. I think we're still in Nevada. We're still tallying votes. I think.
Yeah, we still are.
I think we're at 90% or something.
You have 3 days to have your ballot.
Yeah. I still don't understand that. Because I think election night, for example, Senator Brown running for Senate was winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was.
And then now he's losing. And
it's the same thing as what happened to Adam Laxalt a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
the day of
right.
And the day leading, he was ahead. And then as the days drug out and more ballots came in and were counted, then he lost.
Mysteriously lost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's so unfortunate.
Yeah, that's putting it very nicely. I'm not going to use the word suspicious here on the Champions for Life radio broadcast, but sometimes when you smell a fish, you smell fish, and that's that. So, but
you do see, the election has somewhat opened people's eyes in a different direction that they weren't open to before. I was just on Twitter yesterday and today, and there's a bunch of graph charts floating around that have how many votes Bush and Clinton and Obama and Biden all got each of these last elections compared to along with their opponent. And you have 2020 that's a complete anomaly. It just skyrockets far past what any of the other elections have been. And then you get to 2024 and it's back down lower to what it was prior to 2020. And so a lot of people online are saying something's messed up. Where are the 16 million voters from the last time? Like, now they're thinking that the fix is in on the other side because 15 million people are missing from counting at the election. So I'm like, well, that's something I guess you guys are going to have to figure out.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of people talk about it, say, well, we need some kind of federal election law. Well, unfortunately, states are sovereign, and the election results are the responsibility of each state and how they conduct their elections, how they count their votes. It's up to every state. And years ago, in fact, I think it still continues. It was said, let's put it that way, that Secretary of State was one of the most key important positions for either side to hold because of the fact that the Secretary of State conducts the election. And if you have a Secretary of State that is a little suspicious, then the election can go either way. And I noticed at least a few years ago, it used to have, for example, an unnamed Secretary of State had, a George Soros Foundation as one of their contributors to their campaign, and they won. Yeah. And and then funny things started to happen. So it's the views and opinions expressed by the co-host of the show do not necessarily reflect the, but you get suspicious.
People definitely wouldn't come to Las Vegas and gamble their money and accept the way we do our election. We wouldn't be known for being a good place to gamble if we had outcomes like we do elections.
Well, and that's the other thing, too. Everybody was talking about Proposition 7, Question 7, which, of course, it passed, by the way. Almost 3/4 of the people that voted. That was the one that dealt with voter identification. In other words, you have to show some identification before you vote. You would think that would be the law. Not the law. Mm-hmm. But I was trying to explain to everyone, You think that solves the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. Years ago, we required in this state that illegals have driver's license, and the reasoning was that you don't want an illegal person not to carry insurance on their car, right? So they must have a driver's license. You would think that sounded reasonable, but the little thing that you didn't realize was we have a motor voter bill. And that motor voter bill basically says you can sign up to vote. You can register to vote when you get your driver's license. Now, the question is anyone doing a citizen's check when you apply for your driver's license?
Not. My friend just called me the other day, and she just got married here in the last year and a half, and she got ballots to her house for her in-laws, and her in-laws are not citizens here in the country. And she's like, "Can you believe it? They mailed my in-laws ballots to vote." And I'm like, yeah, I can believe it, because I mean, I know people that got the same name ballots to their house. It's a wreck. I have a guy that I go to church with that said the dumpster outside of the apartment complex where he works last round had just ballots scattered all over the parking lot.
Wow.
So if people don't think that there's some tampering with ballots and
shenanigans,
elections, I got something else to sell them.
Well, and I think probably we all know them. You know, talk to coworkers. I've talked to a few of mine that you said, it's a funny thing happened last election. I'm not a citizen. I have a green card, but I got a ballot to vote. I got a mail-in ballot to vote, and how does this happen? So I mean, it's a step in the right direction. I feel that great that you require some form of identification before you vote, but you have to do something with this. Motor voter bill has to be repealed, and unfortunately, for the state of Nevada, the Dems are still in control here, and so it's going to be difficult.
Back to ballots. I was going to touch on Florida. God bless Florida, boy. They had abortion on their ballot down there. You had to have a 60% to pass to make abortion legal in their state again. And their governor, Governor DeSantis, was ahead of it, pushing against it. And I also heard that Randall Terry registered to run for president solely for the purpose of being able to put abortion commercials on the airwaves, particularly ones with images of aborted babies in them. And so I was told that he focused most of his commercials on Florida. And by the grace of God, last I saw it was like 57 or 58% of Floridians were voting in favor, but it didn't have the 60% it needed to pass. I was talking to my sister about it, and I said, we were a part of helping save a baby in Florida last year. We had a lady that had 2 abortions down there in Florida in the past year and a half prior to her getting pregnant with this baby. And when she got pregnant with this baby, she went back to her abortionist, and he said, "I can't do it for you this time." And so he told her, "Go to this place in Las Vegas, and they'll do it for you."
Wow. Well,
by God's divine providence, she arrived on our street thinking that the share ride dropped her off at our center door. Her and her husband were in town for it. And she came in, and she ended up staying, but refused to look at the ultrasound. And they turned the Doppler on, and she heard the heartbeat of her baby. And I always say, they come in, sometimes they think they're blind, but hearing their baby's heartbeat makes them see. And she opened her eyes when she heard the heartbeat and looked at the TV screen in front of her on the wall. And it was a really big baby. He was a week away from being 5 months old. And so she saw him, and she said, "Oh, he's so big. Like, I can't do that again." And so she ended up keeping her baby. He's now 10 months old, and she's so thrilled that she has him. But I know their legislation down there banning abortion has no doubt saved lives. We were a part of part of helping save that one life that flew back to Florida with her baby still alive and thriving when she came here to do something different. I think Nebraska and South Dakota were the other two states that didn't pass it.
Yeah. So shout out to Nebraska and South Dakota, the people there, for voting for life. And but I mean, all the others. I mean, the work continues. And it's heartbreaking, especially if you're living in a state such as ours. The work continues, and regardless of whether or not how you feel on abortion. A lot of times, women they end up pregnant for one reason or another, and they need help. And the beautiful thing about First Choice Pregnancy Services is that they will help you free of charge. They will help your situation, and it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, you guys have heard everything. I mean, First Choice has had illegals come across Mexico who have been raped and are now pregnant, and now they end up in Las Vegas, and now First Choice helps them. We've already talked about how some of these transgender young ladies who've had the surgeries but end up being pregnant anyway, and now, First Choice helps them. No charge, no judgment. You do everything we can to help these young ladies. And it's an amazing thing. Maybe that's you today. Perhaps you're listening to this broadcast. You say, you know what, I'm pregnant. Or maybe I don't even know if I'm pregnant. But this is, I'm not crazy about the dad, and, I need to talk to somebody because I need to know everything about this pregnancy. Give First Choice a call. It's free of charge. You can meet with them. First of all, First Choice doesn't charge any of their clients anything. They've been open 20 years, never charged a client a cent. And so give them a call. The number, 702-294-CARE. That's 702-294-2273. And give them a call and say, listen, and let's do the pregnancy test. Let's, which is free, and say, you know what, would it be okay if I have a sonogram? Well, they'll hook you up. You'll get to see your child. You'll get to hear the baby's heartbeat, and maybe you'll even get one of those amazing little flashing little heart doohickey things. Those are so cool. The
recording of your baby's heartbeat.
Oh, those are so cool. Those are so cool.
Yeah.
You press a button, you hear your baby's heartbeat because they record it. I mean, it's just so cool. It's just so cool. And so we love First Choice. That's why we're here. That's why we do. That's why Deborah is the executive director of First Choice.
I was at the center today, and one of our volunteers, two friends came in together that volunteer together with our baby bottle campaign. And I was sitting in the events office working on some things with Rebecca, and they walked in and we started talking about the election and just abortion on the ballot. And one of them said, I have two liberal sisters that are all about a woman's right, and they kind of got into it about the initiative here in Nevada, and kind of ended without anybody responding when she put back to them that it was going to allow for 9 months. They had said, oh no, we don't believe people are doing it at 9 months. And so I was like, really? So I told her, I said, well, the DC-5, which is those babies that were recovered in 2022 from those boxes at that abortion clinic that had the 115 babies, 5 of them being later term viable babies, I said, that's pretty clear evidence that they're doing them in the later trimesters. There's photograph, video evidence of this. And so I was actually looking up some statistics a little while ago on abortion the stats aren't up to date for every year, but the stats that I did see were from 2021. There was 31,000 babies that were aborted in the third trimester in 2021. There was 130,000 babies that were aborted in the second trimester. For the whole year, it was a little over 1 million babies. And so for people who live in the naive world thinking that they're advocating and pushing abortion for babies that are just barely forming and developed. No, there's a large number of babies that if they were born when the abortion took place, they would have survived.
Yeah.
So it's a much larger number than people think. People's ignorance on the topic literally is costing a lot of babies their lives. They just vote and pass things.
Yeah, it's very tragic. And, you know, a lot of people also don't know this, that a late-term abortion is often preferable for a couple of reasons. One, you can birth the baby breech and then end the life of the baby. And the reason that's safer for the mother is because very often the uterus is perforated because of the bones breaking, the baby's bones being broken inside the womb and then being extracted from the womb. And a lot of times the womb is punctured by those bones. So it's a late-term abortion where the baby is birthed with the breech and with the head still remaining inside the womb, as though that makes any kind of crazy difference. And then the child's life is ended, which there's no other way to call this. It's just infanticide. It's tragic even just to mention it. But it's happening by the thousands in our country. By the thousands. And now that we've passed, or it hasn't passed yet, Proposition 6, because we have to go 2 election cycles, it hasn't passed yet. I mean, they've taken the first step towards passing it, but we have to vote on this again in 2 more years. But if it does pass, then we will be facing that very situation where children, not only Nevada children, but children that are coming from other states, very, very pregnant women are coming to our state and to end the life of their child, and it's tragic. And the other reason why a late-term abortion is preferable is because, and it's sad. It's really sad to talk about this. It just rips your heart in half. But the child's organs are more developed, and because they're more valuable to research laboratories, universities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes these young ladies, they can sign a form which says, they're talked into it like this. They say, well, wouldn't you like something wonderful to happen that's from something tragic? Wouldn't you like some benefit to happen from this? And of course they'll say yes. And then what's happened, those parts, unfortunately, are very often they're sold to these research laboratories, universities, and all these companies. And it's frightening that there are businesses that have the business of transporting body parts. I mean, it's just creepy. It's just horrific.
Yeah, if people go and look up the videos that they just that came out here a few months ago that have all the abortion industry, is that like some big convention type of thing? Did you see that video?
No, I don't think so.
They have the undercover video, and they're talking to these ladies that do abortions, and they're talking about how many abortions a day their clinics do, and how, if they can keep a baby as intact as possible and just pull off one leg from it, like, it's gonna die, and then they can say that, hey, if it's born alive, like, you don't have to save it. But that allows them to keep all the internal organs all good and intact. So just to see on video these women so callously talking about how they abort these babies and try and keep them as intact as possible because of the prices of what they can get for these babies.
It's cannibalistic almost. I mean, it's what we're doing to our own children. It's inhumane. It really is. And I know this is heavy subjects. I know a lot of people is like, wow, my goodness, holy smoke, what are they talking about on the radio? But this is unfortunately the reality that we could be living in the state of Nevada should this pass again. I mean, already it's enshrined in our Constitution up to 6 months. For 6 months, any reason, no reason, doesn't matter. You can end the life of your child up to 6 months, and and then you're trusting the scruples of the abortionist if your child is over 6 months not to do and then you just wonder, But I know it's tough. It's tough, but these are the reasons why these ballot measures must be opposed and defeated. And if it requires Deborah to run for president of the United States so that we can run ads on television depicting the pictures, because correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how Randall Terry was able to show the Floridian folks what abortion is by showing the results of abortion in his campaign ad for president in the state of Florida. He was able to show this, and then, people quite naturally are shocked because they've never seen it before, right?
Yeah, to sit here and try to explain to somebody what that looks like, we can explain it all day long. But God has not created our minds to go to a place that we'll ever be able to fathom or imagine what that looks like with somebody explaining it to us.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I think that I would bet you 90% of Americans have no idea how an abortion is done, what that looks like. One of the gals today that was talking to me that was with her friend, she said, my husband was on the fence about abortion until he's an officer. And there was a young girl that got raped. And he had to go pick up the kit, as they called it, of the sample of the pregnancy to test for this rape. And he went and picked it up and opened it, and he said it was a baby, and it was a 12-week baby. So at 12 weeks, that little baby was pretty formed and developed. You'd be able to see some good hands and legs, little feet. And she said, him seeing the remains of that baby in that little container changed his or pushed him over the edge to where he was pro-life after he saw that.
Oh, yeah. And that's the amazing thing. I mean, once you see what the reality is, it's very hard for you to justify it within your conscience. It's just hard. And on the flip side, if you help wonderful ministries like First Choice or any of the pro-life ministries out there, whether it be Right to Life or 40 Days for Life or any such, and you're able to hold in your arms a child that is alive because you have helped, then you experience the joy and exhilaration. I mean, you couldn't get two further apart emotions on this issue. When you're dealing with a live baby who's just a bundle of joy and looking at you with just delightfulness, and then you're looking at the remains of a dismembered child. I mean, you couldn't get any farther apart in any thinking of any two subjects. It's incredible. Now, before we go though, we have to take time off, take a break, we got to take a little break to acknowledge the sponsors of our show. Now, we love our sponsors, and the reason why we mention them, because not only because we love them, but because they help us be on the air, speaking with you, relating about these very important facts. And the other part of it is, the benefit for them is that God's going to bless their business because of the ministry of First Choice. It's just that simple. And they're going to bless it because you're listening and you're going to visit them. And one of our sponsors, of course, is Kelly Chiropractic. Now listen, Dr. Ray Kelly. Dr. Kelly does not want you to live in pain anymore. If you're in pain, stop it. Stop living in pain. Give Dr. Kelly a call. Now listen, he treats injuries from falls, accidents, car crashes, that guy that collided in you and now you're not walking straight, your neck is bothering you, doesn't matter. But it doesn't stop there. He has treatment for high blood pressure, allergy-induced autism. Think about that. Chronic arthritis, pain, and inflammation. And so not only does he adjust you, right? He has physiotherapy and natural remedies to help you deal with the pain. Look, we've all been hurting. The last thing we're tired of doing is taking, for example, muscle relaxers that send us into outer space. We don't like pharmaceuticals, and that could be you. Dr. Kelly, for example, has natural muscle relaxers that doesn't send your mind into orbit. And I love that. I absolutely love that. Give Doc Kelly a call for your examination. They accept most forms of insurance. DocKelly.com, DocKelly.com, or give them a call, 702-870-9200. That's 702-870-9200. Kelly Chiropractic, a proud sponsor of the Champions for Life radio broadcast. We love Doc Kelly. So go see him and get rid of that pain. Because you might all be bent out of shape out of some of the election results, and you need some straightening and some adjustments and some natural muscle relaxers, which they work, by the way. I remember one year, it was 3 Christmases ago, and I don't know why I'm sharing this, but that morning it was really sad because I was wrapping Christmas, playing Santa. I got 5 kids, so I was, and I was wrapping presents, and then bam! I was hurting so bad at 1 o'clock in the morning, right, that I had to check myself into the emergency room at the hospital here in Las Vegas 3 years ago. I mean, it was hurting so bad. So the pain was so intense. They gave me 2 shots of morphine. It barely cut it. 2 shots of morphine. They did everything. They couldn't figure out what the pain was. And eventually I wanted to go to Doc Kelly, did the MRI, did all that stuff. And, I thought maybe kidney stone. I didn't know what was going on. And the emergency room didn't help me. They had no idea. They gave me some ibuprofen, said goodbye. After 2 shots, it's still incredible pain. And thankfully, for the last 3 years, I've been seeing Doc Kelly. I'm back playing golf, folks. I'm playing, I'm telling you this, Doc Kelly. The other thing about Doc Kelly, I don't mean to talk, but he's also a pastor. So not only is he going to take, he's going to fix you, he's going to pray for you too. How good is that? Okay, we got to stop talking about our sponsors.
That's awesome.
So anyway, for those of you who are interested, your Prop 6 was not the only question. There were others. Let's see. We had Proposition number 1. You guys remember this one? This was the Board of Regents would be gone, and then the legislature would then take over our universities. Y'all said no. No. We're leaving our Board of Regents right where they are. We don't need our, politicians running our colleges. So that got defeated. Number 2 was basically a language. Remember this one where you had some weird language in that dealt with calling people insane. And some old terminology, and now instead of insane, you're now significant mental illness. So it was basically, it didn't change anything except just change some of the language. So number 2, that passed. You guys said yes. Obviously number 3, which was, number three, where they wanted to change the way we voted in Nevada, which was crazy. They wanted us to adopt the California method of insanity. Significant mental illness, and do this. Not only do the primaries would be open to nonsense, open primaries, which is a very bad idea, but also they had this ranking system for voting, where you would rank your candidate. Well, I like this one the most, and he'll be number 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and and then you've got to do. You said nah, forget that, so y'all voted against that as well. And number 4. You voted in favor of this, banning the words banning slavery and involuntary servitude from our criminal code, which, okay, the views and opinions. Well, first of all, involuntary servitude is making people work without pay, which is kind of like slavery. But we're talking about the people in our prison systems, right? So when I make you, you're a bad person and you're breaking big rocks into small rocks now because you did very bad things and, you've 72 different criminal charges. Now, big rocks into small rocks, pressing license plates and, making our greenery look good around this. I guess we can't do that anymore because you voted against it. So now I guess our penitentiary bound folks are going to, I don't know, study law. I really don't know. So
just give them like a quarter an hour.
Well, I really don't know. Maybe we can pay them like a penny an hour. That's a good idea. Pay them a penny an hour, and then it wouldn't be involuntary servitude anymore. Proposition 5, which was cool. Proposition 5 was to exempt diapers from sales tax and use taxes, other taxes, stuff like that. So diapers, kind of like food, there's no tax. 68% of you said yes, which I contrasted that with Proposition 6, which was the abortion one, which you were 63% yes. So you're 68. Most of us are in favor of free diapers, but then most of us are in favor of not needing diapers because. Yeah. So anyway, the diapers, no sales tax. Then on number 7, of course, the voter ID. 73% of y'all said absolutely. You got to show some identification before you come vote, though it's still not gonna really solve the problem. So that's that. So there's your proposition for, and again, only 91% of the vote is in for Nevada. Maybe by the beginning of the year, our election department will have the results. I don't understand.
Yeah.
My goodness. And then all the incumbents, by the way, for those of you House of Representatives and Senate and State of Nevada, all the incumbents won. Titus over Robertson, Lee over Johnson, Democrat, Hosford over Lee. That's districts 1, 3, and 4. All Democrats. They were all incumbents. They all won. And in District 2 in Northern Nevada, which is predominantly conservative, Amodei, I don't know how you pronounce his name, but he won over Kidd. So we got one representative out of the 4 that are Republican, and the other 3 are Democrat. And the election is in the process of being not stolen from Brown, use another word. Senator Rosen is now just 13,000 votes ahead of, and they're still counting, over Brown. And Senator Rosen is the, so, I mean, that's, however, most of you, by 50,000 votes, voted in favor of Trump over the other person, Kamala. So that's almost 51% of Nevadans.
You know, there's a thing that I've seen on social media yesterday and today, Twitter particularly, because it's about where I get a lot of my news content anymore. But there's a campaign now that women have going. That's right. That is 4B, and it's women that are sitting there super bent out of shape that Trump won the election and saying, okay, for all of you men that voted for Trump, we're dry desert. No sex for you for the next 4 years. We can do this. And so there's this other guy doing the video, and he's like, look it, y'all fixed the abortion issue just by picking this guy because now these girls aren't going to go sleep around. They don't need abortions anymore. And so it's really interesting to watch the meltdown of those who have just been so hell-bent on abortion being their primary focus. But now all of a sudden they're going to take control of the situation and they're not going to be getting pregnant.
You know what? Reproductive right, you know?
And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting how this works. Like they see now that they have the ability that they don't need abortions. Just don't sleep with guys.
Yeah, hey, guess what? You know? I saw some. I don't know. I think it was a Charles Schultz. You know, it was Lucy and talking to Linus, and Lucy was sitting there. She goes, you know, I'm in favor of abortion because I want control over my body. You know, and then Linus is sitting there, and he says, well, if you controlled your body, you wouldn't need abortions. You know, so.
Yeah, I think the other thing that people don't realize either is there is just so much fear-mongering around this issue because it is a hot topic for people that are passionate about it particularly. But what had Kamala Harris done in the last 2 years that she says she's going to do in the next 4 had she got elected? Like, nothing.
Nothing would change. She said so.
If we want to talk about women's rights, like, let's start with our daughters who play sports that have guys coming into their locker room
can't.
Guys
It drives
stealing
me.
their trophies.
That drives me crazy right there. For those of you who are parents, keep your eyes on the road, because I know for those of you who got 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old daughters, and you can't imagine that the school board the policy is for males to be in your daughter's locker room undressing and taking showers. I just stay on the road. Keep your eyes on the road. Don't, because that just fries me. I mean, I've got 3 daughters, and I can't imagine. I just can't imagine that scenario. I would go ballistic. And
There was talk in Congress a couple years ago. They were trying to pass a draft for girls. And I said, no, like, I haven't been fighting for all these crazy rights. Like, I don't want my daughter being drafted into the military. So it's like there's plenty of things you can stand up for women on and their rights immediately now. But I saw one gal on a MSNBC interview, and she said she didn't believe that, because they constantly were pushing that Trump wanted a national ban on abortion and that he was going to do that if he got elected. And Martha McCallum on Fox had Senator Kelly from Arizona on the other day, and he just kept repeating this constantly, that if you guys elect Trump, he's going to ban abortions across the country. He's going to do a national ban. And Martha would tell him, no, he's never said that. And he just kept coming back to that. And she finally got tired of keep telling him that wasn't true. And she pretty much just ended the interview on that and moved on. So this young gal says that was one thing that turned her off, because she knew he wasn't for it, and it had been an issue that had been brought back to the states, and she thought that it should be up to the states to make their own decision on it, and she supported that. So that wasn't her primary focus in sitting here voting for reproductive rights, which I just find it so crazy that you're calling reproductive rights murdering an unborn baby. Like, reproduction is reproducing, not ending.
Yeah.
And so how they came up with reproductive rights.
I've noticed that all the names of the issues, if it doesn't matter what the bill is or it's normally, if it's a reproductive, it's the exact opposite of whatever the bill is or the movement is. It's just completely flipped. So if I'm suspicious now. So if a bill is produced and it says Income Tax Reduction Act, for example, then it's not going to be reduced. It's probably going to increase. It's just the exact opposite. And of course reproductive rights. It's the same thing. I mean, but you don't want to reproduce. I mean, when you have a baby, you have already reproduced. The issue is over. You have a child now. You are burying a child. You are with child, they used to say. And it's flat out insanity. But
Since
you know
we're
what?
on politics, something else I saw online today that our listeners might want to go check out. I thought it was really cool. It's Policies of the People. It's a website that is up that Robert Kennedy Jr. is kind of in charge, I guess, of monitoring. And you can go onto this website and you can suggest policies that you think this administration should put forward on behalf of Americans. And Americans can go and vote on it to show which ones have greater importance to the Americans. And there's a whole range of things already that have been submitted on the website. I mean, there's insider trading, banning Congress people from buying and selling stocks when their family member serves in Congress, banning yellow food coloring from food, another one, holistic health insurance. There's a whole bunch of different things on there, but I thought it was a really interesting way to go about understanding what your everyday Americans
what's the website again?
Policies for the People.
Policies for the People.
Mm-hmm.
And people can vote on various issues. And frankly, I don't understand the yellow food coloring thing, but what is it, from sea urchins or something? What's that about? I don't know.
I don't know what that specific one is, but I know
either.
that there's different colors and different foods that they say are very harmful to you. I know red and yellow are both really bad ones. I don't know all the details
Okay.
behind them, but it just had a whole lot of different categories of topics that people had already submitted.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're somebody that is involved in politics, or you might not be involved in politics, but you feel like maybe you've talked to a bunch of people and you feel like there's a common issue that might be good to put out there and see if they'd address it and see what other Americans vote on what you submit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an interesting way, I think, to get a good sample of what Americans are experiencing, what's important to them.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I know that is very important, of course, is reversing some of the policies of the current administration, the Biden administration, and one of those is the Mexico City policy, which, of course, our taxpayer dollars go to fund abortion in other countries. And it's labeled as aid to other countries. I remember one. I think it was one diplomat. I think it was some African country, and he was remarking about how he would see the Jeep coming over the hill, and he was thinking that the Jeep was going to be coming, with supplies to his people and help, and instead it was one of these contraceptive.
Abortion.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my people need food and water, and you're rushing over here with things that we don't need. But the Mexico City policy, of course, we want to reenact that because that was struck down by executive order by the Biden administration. And basically, what this does, it will stop your dollars and my dollars from going to pay for an abortion for somebody in Turkey. I mean, why would I want to do that? I mean, listen, we got a lot of problems here, but why would I want to send my money for, Well,
I was just thinking about it this morning when I saw that website. I was like, something should be submitted here where government creates some kind of way that instead of funding abortions, if you're going to fund abortions, how about funding mothers who want to keep their babies? How about funding maternity homes? How about funding things that people need for their children, funding childcare for them to go get the education they need to get training for a good job?
Yeah.
There's so many things that we could use our money on here at home to better off American people's lives. We just waste so much money in so many other places and push godless policies on our people and encourage that and pay for that, but we're not doing anything to support righteousness and enabling people to make the right choice by helping them with whatever obstacles might be in their path.
Right, and which is exactly why we're having Dave Garris from Hold Fast Nevada Foundation on our broadcast next week. And we'll be interviewing him because he helps supply a lot of those needs that women who are not just pregnant women, but in the context of our show, that are in a situation where they need some help. And the beauty about his organization is that there are resources, both state and federal, that can actually help young ladies have their child. And that's why I love having Dave on, because you could figure out, okay, what are those policies, make the public more aware of the help that already exists for the young ladies. So I'm excited next week. So you guys tune in. You're going to be hearing about the Hold Fast Nevada Foundation. We've interviewed them before. We're going to interview them again. We're going to interview them in the future to let more folks know about some of the resources that are out there. I mean, this is America. We can help. We can help. And even if it wasn't America, we're the body of Christ. We can help. And so that's I'm looking forward to that show. Looking forward to that broadcast. And so who knows, maybe even next week, we may actually have in studio the executive director for First Choice Pregnancy Services in studio next week.
I would have been there tonight, but I pulled into my garage tonight to just bring my kids home and pick up a few things and drop one off at sports, and turned my van off for literally 5 minutes, and I came back out and it would not turn on. And I was like, what? And I started having this electrical flashing of all this stuff, and I've had some issues with electrical stuff on it, even though it's top of the line a car that I bought brand new. It's been my lemon vehicle, and so I tried putting the battery cables on it for like 5 minutes and nothing. And I called my husband, FaceTimed him. I said, I want to make sure I'm putting this on right, see what's happening. And as soon as I called him and he answered FaceTime, it turned on.
Well, we got to get that. We have to get that. We have to get that checked out. Well, anyway, my goodness, we've come to the end of the broadcast. Well, Deborah, thank you.
Thanks for holding down the fort over there.
Yeah, no, it's our pleasure here at KKVV. We love this radio station. You guys are fantastic. Don't forget our sponsors, RTS Postal Express, and, of course, Kelly Chiropractic. Go out and visit them. Get your situation situated. And, folks, thank you very much for listening to our broadcast today. We will see you next week.
God bless you.
Thanks for joining us for the Champions for Life radio broadcast, the outreach ministry of First Choice Pregnancy Services.
Join us every Thursday at 12:30 on KKVV 1060 AM.